Alright, class. Today we're going to be reading Grandma's Gift by Eric Valazquez. Get right into it. Feliz Navidad, Eric. My teacher walked me to the classroom door where my grandmother was waiting to take me back to her apartment for my winter break. I used to spend all my school vacations with her so she could take care of me while my parents worked. Before we left, my teacher handed Grandma a note about our holiday project. The Metropolitan Museum of Art had just bought a famous painting, and I had to go see and write a report. On our way home, Grandma asked me to translate the note because she couldn't read English. I translated a lot of things for her, Grandma. Sometimes I felt like I was going to school for two. All the note said was Metropolitan Museum of Art, 82nd Street and 5th Avenue, 2nd floor, new exhibit. But for now, I had 10 whole days of freedom. The Christmas time in El Barrio was always like magic. Everyone was out in the streets shopping for food and gifts, and Grandma was ready to join them. So we dropped off my suitcase and headed straight for La Marqueta, the market. One of my favorite places. This special group of shops and stalls sat under the elevated train tracks, and all the stalls rumbled and shook whenever a train passed overhead. Grandma could find everything she needed there year-round: fruits, vegetables, fish, meat, clothing, and even her favorite records. But that day, Grandma was shopping only for the ingredients for pastales, the traditional Christmas dish for Puerto Ricans. She promised that if I helped her make the pastales this year, she would take me to the museum. Our first stop was the produce stand by the root vegetables. Estoy buscando calabaza, guayita, guatilla, plátanos verdes, guinillos verdes, y papas, Grandma said to the first vendor. I'm looking for pumpkins, taro roots, green plantains, green bananas, and potatoes. Pues aquí tenemos los muerjes. Here are the best. All vendors knew that Grandma would buy only the best ingredients for her famous pastales. When they agreed on the price, Grandma said, "Gracias y Feliz Navidad." Thank you and Merry Christmas. Our next stop was the butcher stand. ¿Cuál pedazo le gusta, Dona Carmen? Alberto asked. Which piece do you like, Miss Carmen? Se ve bueno, dame 4 libras. Grandma said. That one is good. Give me 4 pounds. After that, our last stop was Dona Juanita's bodega for parchment, wrapping paper, banana leaves, string, and El Barrio's latest gossip. The worst part of the trip was carrying the heavy shopping bags up 5 flights of stairs to Grandma's apartment. As soon as she took off her coat, Grandma headed straight for the kitchen and went right to work peeling and grating the root vegetables by hand, never with a blender. If you wanted to taste traditional, you must make it traditionally, she always said. When I asked her where she learned to grate so fast, she only answered, "You should have seen my mother grate." While she worked, Grandma asked me to choose some records to set the mood. Siempre me gusta tu selección. I always liked your selection. As Grandma put the meat on to simmer, she told me stories about her life in Santurce, Puerto Rico. But she really had to concentrate when it came to wrapping the pastales, the hardest part of the recipe. First, Grandma carefully laid out the sheet of parchment paper with a piece of banana leaf on top. Then she poured a little annatto oil on the leaf and added la masa, the dough, and la carne, the meat, with a valley scooped out over the middle for the salsa, the sauce. For the finishing touch, she folded everything together to form a perfect rectangle and tied each one with a string, and it looked like an old-fashioned parcel. While the pastales were boiling for an hour, Grandma said, "Estos pastales van ser mejores porque están hechos especialmente para ti. These pastales are going to be the best ever because I am making them just for you." But I knew that I had to share them with the rest of the family and friends who came to visit. She also always handed them out to her favorite vendors as she shopped for all of her gifts. The Tuesday morning before Christmas, Grandma woke up and announced that we were going to the museum so I could write my report before all the toys I would get for the holiday distracted me. Grandma never really traveled beyond the 20 blocks that made up the El Barrio, where she knew everyone and everyone knew her. I could tell she was nervous, but I couldn't help being excited. The museum was a short ride down Fifth Avenue, but the neighborhood was completely different. When we got off the bus right in front of the museum, we didn't see anyone from Puerto Rico on that street, and no one was speaking Spanish. As we walked up the steps and through the doors to the admission booth, I saw Grandma searching the crowd for a familiar face. Then she asked me to read what it said above the booth. I explained that it said to pay with what you wish. This made Grandma nervous and unsure about what to do. She fumbled through her purse and handed the clerk some money with shaky hands. Once inside, we went up the large flight of stairs to the gallery on the second floor, as my teacher had directed in her note. All the paintings there were beautiful. ¿Qué dice aquí? What does it say there? Grandma would frequently ask me to translate the caption written next to each painting. Suddenly, Grandma turned and said, "Oye, Juan de Pareja, ¿qué haces tú aquí? Hey, Juan de Pareja, what are you doing there?" Grandma finally recognized someone from El Barrio, but she was talking to a painting, and it was the most magnificent of them all. I quickly ran up to them and read the caption next to it. "Grandma, it says Juan de Pareja was a slave and an assistant to the great painter Diego Velazquez. He later set Pareja free, and de Pareja became a great artist himself." While we both stood there just staring at the amazing painting, the gentleman seemed to be looking back at us. He seemed so real, much like someone we might see walking around El Barrio. I couldn't believe that this was a painting in a museum. That evening, my parents bought arroz con guandales and lechon, rice with pigeon peas and roast pork, to have with Grandma's delicious pastales for our Christmas Eve dinner. While we ate, Grandma and I told them all about our museum adventure. Grandma explained that she had learned about Juan de Pareja when she was growing up in Puerto Rico. We all told stories and listened to music until midnight when Grandma brought out our gift for me. I ripped off the wrapping paper to find my very own sketchbook and my first set of colored pencils. As we listened to Anguandado Puertorriqueño, my favorite Christmas carol, I took out my pencils and began to draw my very own first self-portrait.